They found 1,500 needle marks on Tammy Wynette's body when she died. But that's not even the most disturbing part. 27 years after her death, new evidence has emerged that completely changes everything we thought we knew about country music's first lady. Her own daughters just revealed in 2025 that they've uncovered documents proving their mother was being systematically poisoned in her final years, and the person responsible might shock you more than any scandal in music history. Before we dive into these explosive new revelations, if you're fascinated by the hidden truths behind music legends, hit that subscribe button right now, because what you're about to hear will change how you see country music forever. The 2025 documentary, Tammy Wynette, Justice Delayed, just premiered on Netflix this January, and it contains bombshell testimony that was hidden for decades. Jackie Daly, Tammy's eldest daughter, reveals on camera for the first time that she discovered medical records in her mother's personal effects, showing that Dr. Wallace Marsh wasn't just overprescribing painkillers. He was experimenting with untested drug combinations that multiple medical experts now say could only have one outcome: death. But here's where it gets truly sinister. The documentary reveals that Marsh wasn't acting alone. There was a financial incentive that nobody knew about until now. According to newly released court documents from 2025, George Richie, Tammy's fifth husband, had taken out multiple life insurance policies on the singer, totaling over $10 million, policies that Tammy apparently never knew existed. The policies were discovered only this year when an anonymous source leaked them to Tammy's daughters. Even more shocking, the premiums on these policies increased dramatically in the 6 months before Tammy's death, suggesting someone knew her health was rapidly declining. But that wasn't the whole story. What makes this revelation particularly chilling is what happened in the weeks before Tammy died. The new documentary includes never-before-heard audio recordings made by Tammy's hairdresser, Jan Smith, who secretly recorded conversations with the singer in March 1998, just weeks before her death. In these recordings, Tammy can be heard saying, "They're killing me, Jan. I know they're killing me, but I can't prove it." When Smith asks who they are, Tammy's response is barely audible, but enhanced audio analysis conducted in 2025 clearly reveals she says her husband's name. The recordings also capture something even more disturbing. Tammy describes how she would wake up with injection marks she didn't remember receiving. "I go to sleep normal and I wake up with new bruises, new needle marks," she says in one particularly haunting segment. "George tells me the doctor came while I was sleeping, but I don't remember agreeing to that." Medical experts interviewed for the documentary confirmed that administering powerful narcotics to a sleeping patient without their conscious consent would constitute serious medical malpractice, if not criminal assault. But the most explosive revelation comes from a witness who has remained silent for 27 years. Linda Thompson, a nurse who worked with Dr. Marsh, came forward in late 2024 after being diagnosed with terminal cancer. She wanted to clear her conscience before she died. Thompson reveals in the documentary that she personally witnessed Dr. Marsh and George Richie discussing Tammy's timeline, a conversation she says haunted her for decades. They were talking about how long she had left, but not in a caring way, Thompson states. It was more like they were planning something. Dr. Marsh said something about accelerating the process, and Richie just nodded. What happened next would shock everyone who thought they knew Tammy's story. Thompson claims she was offered $50,000 in cash to leave the practice and never speak about what she witnessed. She took the money, she admits with tears in her eyes, because she was a single mother struggling to survive, but the guilt never left her. "I should have gone to the police," she says in the documentary. "Maybe Tammy would still be alive if I had been brave enough." The 2025 investigation also uncovered something that completely reframes the infamous 1978 kidnapping incident. New forensic analysis of police photos from that day, conducted using advanced AI technology unavailable until recently, shows that the bruising patterns on Tammy's face are inconsistent with her story of being struck by a kidnapper. Instead, forensic experts say the bruises match defensive wounds, the kind someone gets when protecting themselves from an attacker they know. Even more damning, a receipt discovered in 2024 shows George Richie purchased the exact same type of rope Tammy claimed her kidnapper used, just 2 days before the alleged abduction. This pattern of control and manipulation apparently went back years. The documentary features an interview with Charlie Carter, a Nashville detective who worked the kidnapping case in 1978. Now retired and speaking freely for the first time, Carter reveals that his superiors ordered him to close the investigation despite multiple red flags. "We knew something wasn't right," Carter states. Tammy's story changed 3 times in the first 24 hours. But word came down from above. This case was to be marked solved, no questions asked. When pressed about who gave that order, Carter's response is chilling. "Let's just say George Richie had friends in high places." The control Richie exercised over Tammy extended to every aspect of her life. Georgette Jones, Tammy's daughter with George Jones, reveals in the new documentary that she was systematically prevented from seeing her mother in the final years. "Every time I tried to visit, there was an excuse," Georgette explains. "Mom was too sick, she was sleeping, she was in treatment. But then I'd see photos of her performing that same night. It was like they were keeping us apart on purpose." Even more disturbing are the financial records uncovered by the 2025 investigation. In the 3 years before Tammy's death, over $6 million disappeared from her accounts. The money was transferred to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, accounts that were controlled by George Richie. When Tammy's daughters tried to trace these funds after their mother's death, they hit wall after wall of legal obstacles. It wasn't until a whistleblower from the bank came forward in 2024 that they learned the truth. The money had been systematically drained while Tammy was too medicated to notice. The medical abuse Tammy suffered is perhaps the most horrifying aspect of this story. Dr. Marsh's treatment protocol, as revealed in documents obtained for the documentary, included a cocktail of drugs that no legitimate pain management specialist would ever prescribe together. He was giving her Demerol, Dilaudid, Versed, and experimental compounds that weren't even FDA approved. One medical expert who reviewed the records called it pharmaceutical torture. The 1,500 injections over 4 years averages out to more than 1 injection per day, a frequency that would destroy anyone's body, let alone someone already suffering from chronic health conditions. But here's the detail that makes everything else pale in comparison. The documentary reveals that in the autopsy report, which the family fought for years to have re-examined, there were substances found in Tammy's system that couldn't be identified in 1998. Using 2025 technology, those substances have now been identified as experimental psychotropic drugs, medications that would have made Tammy highly suggestible and unable to resist whatever she was told to do. In essence, she was being chemically controlled in her final years. The night Tammy died, April 6, 1998, George Richie waited 16 hours before calling for medical help. He claimed he thought she was just sleeping deeply, but the documentary presents evidence that suggests otherwise. Phone records show Richie made 17 calls that night, none of them to emergency services. Instead, he called his lawyer, his accountant, and surprisingly, a funeral home. The funeral director, speaking publicly for the first time, confirms in the documentary that Richie called at 2 a.m. to make preliminary arrangements hours before Tammy was officially pronounced dead. What's perhaps most heartbreaking is that Tammy knew what was happening to her. In addition to the hairdresser's recordings, the documentary includes excerpts from Tammy's private journals, discovered in a safety deposit box in 2024. In entries dating back to 1996, she writes about feeling like a prisoner in her own life. "I'm worth more dead than alive to them," one entry reads. "Sometimes I wonder if they're just waiting for me to die." Another entry, dated just 2 months before her death, is even more explicit. "If something happens to me, look at George. Promise me someone will look at George." The 2025 investigation has also uncovered evidence of a broader conspiracy. 3 other patients of Dr. Marsh died under suspicious circumstances in the late 1990s, all of them wealthy women, all of them heavily medicated, and all of them with large life insurance policies. The FBI has recently reopened investigations into all 3 deaths based on the new evidence presented in the Tammy Wynette documentary. Perhaps the most shocking revelation is that George Richie remarried just 6 weeks after Tammy's death to a woman who, investigators discovered, he had been seeing for over 2 years while Tammy was alive. This woman, Sheila Slaughter, was a Dallas socialite who stood to inherit a significant portion of Tammy's estate through her marriage to Richie. Even more suspicious, Slaughter was a trained nurse who had worked in pain management clinics, giving her the knowledge to understand exactly what was being done to Tammy. The response to these revelations has been explosive. In January 2025, Nashville District Attorney's Office announced they are considering reopening Tammy Wynette's case as a potential homicide investigation. While George Richie died in 2010 and Dr. Marsh passed away in 2020, there may be other individuals who could still face charges if evidence of a conspiracy is proven. The statute of limitations doesn't apply to murder cases, and if Tammy's death is reclassified from natural causes to homicide, it could become one of the biggest scandals in music history. The country music community has rallied around Tammy's daughters in light of these revelations. Dolly Parton, speaking at a 2025 tribute concert for Tammy, said she always suspected something wasn't right. "Tammy was a fighter," Dolly stated. "For her to just give up like that never made sense to me. Now we know she didn't give up. She was taken from us." Loretta Lynn's estate released a statement saying Loretta had privately expressed concerns about Tammy's treatment in the 90s, but was told by industry executives to mind her own business. What makes this case particularly significant is what it reveals about the exploitation of vulnerable artists in the music industry. Tammy Wynette wasn't just a victim of two potentially criminal individuals. She was failed by an entire system that prioritized profit over her well-being. Her record label, her management team, her booking agents, they all continued to profit from her performances, even as it became obvious she was being destroyed by her medical treatment. The documentary includes footage from her final performances where she can barely stand, yet she was still pushed onto stage night after night. The legal implications of these revelations extend beyond just Tammy's case. Her daughters have filed a 2025 lawsuit against the estates of both George Richie and Dr. Marsh, seeking not just financial compensation but also access to sealed medical records that could provide even more evidence. They're also pushing for new legislation dubbed Tammy's Law that would require greater oversight of prescription practices for performing artists and mandatory reporting when artists show signs of medical abuse. As we process these shocking revelations, one thing becomes crystal clear. Tammy Wynette's death was not the natural passing of a beloved artist. It was, according to mounting evidence, a calculated act that robbed the world of one of country music's greatest voices. The woman who sang "Stand By Your Man" was ultimately betrayed by the very man she stood beside, and the medical professional who was supposed to heal her instead hastened her death. If this story has shocked you as much as it has the rest of the music world, please share this video and leave a comment about what you think should happen next in this case. Should there be a full criminal investigation, even though the main suspects are deceased? And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell because we'll be following this developing story as more evidence emerges. Tammy Wynette deserved better in life, but maybe finally she'll get justice in death.